We were that couple everyone thought had it all figured out. Our pictures looked perfect, our smiles always timed right. People used to say, "You two are goals." And for a long time I believed them. I met Emily 6 years ago at a mutual friends party. She had this quiet confidence, the kind that didn't beg for attention, but still got it anyway. I liked that about her. I liked how she could walk into a room and not need to be loud to be heard. We moved in together after 2 years, married by the third. Life felt stable, calm, almost rhythmic. I had a decent job as a software engineer, worked mostly from home. Emily was a freelance photographer. Her schedule was more unpredictable, but we made it work. Or so I thought. The shift didn't happen all at once. It was gradual, like a light dimming so slowly you don't notice you're sitting in the dark. I remember the first time I felt it. She was packing for a 3-day assignment in another city, and I reached for a hug. She flinched. Not obviously, but enough for me to feel it. Enough for me to question if I imagined it. Her phone started living in silent mode. She'd keep it face down, even when it wasn't buzzing. Once, I picked it up to move it aside while setting dinner, and she snapped quick, sharp, like I'd touched something sacred. "It's just work," she said. "Clients are annoying," I nodded. But I knew that wasn't it. It got to the point where she stopped sharing things. Not just big things, little ones too. Like what she ate, who she saw, what song she had on repeat. She used to talk nonstop about her clients, her editing backlog, the weird smells in old studios she rented. Then came the silence. I tried to ask. She smiled, changed the subject, or blamed exhaustion. And I bought it, because sometimes love makes you an accomplice to your own denial. Maya, my younger sister, noticed it too. She stopped by one afternoon while Emily was out. She made a joke about how Emily was glowing up lately. Said she'd seen her in a cafe dressed like she was heading to a date. It stung, but I laughed it off. I said Emily was just exploring a new fashion phase. Even then, I was defending something that was already slipping from my grip. I think part of me didn't want to face what I knew was unraveling. A week later, I found a hoodie in the laundry. Definitely not mine. I asked Emily. She didn't miss a beat, said it was Maya's ex's hoodie. He must have left it months ago. She'd found it tucked in storage and decided to wash it. But Maya had been single for nearly half a year. I knew that. Still, I let it slide. Told myself it didn't matter. That it was just a hoodie. There was a weekend I planned a surprise trip for us. I booked a quiet cabin up north, thought it might be what we needed. When I told her, she looked genuinely touched, eyes wide, hands over her mouth, the works. I felt like I was winning her back. But the night before we were supposed to leave, she said she couldn't go. A last-minute shoot came up. Big client. Couldn't be rescheduled. I wanted to believe her. I even offered to tag along, make a trip out of it. She said it'd be boring for me, just hotel rooms and late nights. That's when I stopped arguing. That's when I knew something wasn't right. I tried to reason with myself. Maybe this was just a rough patch. Maybe she was going through something personal. I'd read about emotional burnout in creative fields. I looked up articles on relationship ruts, communication gaps, even hormonal shifts. Anything to justify the distance growing between us. Anything but the obvious asterisk. Still, I watched, quietly, closely. I started noticing her subtle glances at the door whenever a notification pinned. How she'd disappear into the hallway for calls, then return with a rushed smile, the way she locked her phone twice now. She never used to lock it before. Once she left her laptop open. I didn't look. I wanted to. But I didn't. I told myself I respected her privacy. In reality, I was afraid of what I might find. The hardest part was how normal everything still looked on the outside. She'd kiss me goodnight. We'd eat dinner together. Sometimes we'd even laugh like nothing was broken, but it was. And I was the only one pretending it. WSN single quotes to dot it started with a photo. Maya messaged me late at night. No words, just a screenshot. Emily on a rooftop bar, kissing someone. Her bracelet was visible silver, engraved with our anniversary date. The man wasn't familiar, but his hands were on her waist like they'd done it before. My stomach dropped, but I didn't reply. I just stared, frozen. I didn't want to believe it. I zoomed in, looked for a flaw, something fake bad editing, a reflection, anything. But I couldn't deny the look in her eyes. That wasn't a drunken kiss. It was practiced, intimate. She knew exactly what she was doing. Asterisk, I didn't confront her. Not right away. I needed answers first. I needed proof, not to show her, but to show myself. I started watching more closely. I memorized her patterns. When she said she was at work, I'd check her location. Sometimes it matched. Sometimes it didn't. Once she said she was shooting a wedding downtown. Her phone stayed static in a residential district for hours. I didn't ask. I just logged it in my mind like a growing file of red flags. Asterisk. Then I started noticing things. She didn't even try to hide anymore. A second toothbrush in her travel bag. A hoodie that came back from her trips, not mine. A bottle of cologne in her suitcase. She claimed it was part of a prop shoot. I didn't say anything. I just smiled, pretending to believe it. But inside, I was unraveling in slow motion. Asterisk. Then I saw the name Caleb. A message lit up her phone screen while she was in the shower. Miss you already. I memorized the contact photo. I remembered his name from stories she told. Early in our relationship, college friend, used to be close. She'd brushed it off. Said he was immature, lived in another city, and wouldn't know commitment if it punched him. Now he was in her phone. Now he was telling her he missed her. Asterisk. That night I barely slept. I laid next to her while she breathed calmly, unaware that the life she built with me had already started to rot. I thought about everything. About the weekend trips, the late shoots, the canceled plans. I remembered how she stopped saying, "I love you" first. How her eyes wandered when I spoke. How her hugs started feeling like obligations. And suddenly, it all aligned. Asterisk. When I finally asked. I didn't shout. I didn't accuse. I just asked, "Who's Caleb?" The silence that followed was louder than any answer she could give. Her eyes froze. Her jaw tensed. For a moment I thought she'd lie. But she didn't. She sat down, pulled her knees up to her chest like a child, and admitted everything. It started months ago. He'd reached out randomly. They met for coffee. Then dinner. Then it escalated. She told me she didn't mean to. That it just happened. That it wasn't planned. That she felt seen by him in ways she didn't with me anymore. Asterisk. I asked her if she loved him. She paused too long. Said she didn't know. I asked if she loved me. She cried. That was my answer. Asterisk. The worst part wasn't the affair. It was how she spoke about it, like it was a phase. Like it didn't dismantle the trust we spent years building. She said I was a good man, a kind partner, but that she felt like something was missing. That Caleb reminded her of who she used to be. I wanted to scream, to break something. But instead, I just stood up, grabbed my keys, and left. Asterisk. I drove for hours that night. No destination. Just roads, streetlights, and silence. I didn't cry. I didn't yell. I just existed, detached. I thought about how love turns to dust when you ignore the cracks. I thought about how blind I had been. How easily she had slipped away right under my nose. Asterisk. When I got back the next morning, she was gone. Left a note saying she needed space. Said she was going to figure things out. As if I hadn't just watched her dismantle our life piece by piece. She didn't take all her things. Just enough to feel like she might return. But I knew better. Whatever she had with Caleb had already become bigger than guilt. Asterisk. I didn't call her. I didn't chase her. I deleted every photo of us from my phone. I backed up the wedding album onto a drive, threw it in a drawer, and locked it. I didn't want reminders, I wanted silence. Real silence, not the kind that filled our apartment in those final months. The kind that comes when there's nothing left to fight for, nothing left to pretend. Nothing but the truth she finally stopped hiding. The days after she left felt unreal. I'd wake up expecting to hear the sound of her making coffee, the scent of her perfume lingering in the hallway. But there was nothing, just quiet. And that quiet was brutal. I moved into a small studio apartment on the edge of the city. Not because I couldn't afford better, but because I didn't want anything that reminded me of our old life. I took only my clothes, my laptop, and a few books. The rest stayed behind, along with whatever was left of who we used to be. People started asking questions. Friends, family, even coworkers who had seen us together at events. I kept it vague. Things didn't work out. We're taking space. I wasn't ready to explain betrayal in a sentence. I wasn't ready to say out loud that the woman I loved chose someone else and left without looking back. Maya was the only one I spoke to honestly. She'd come over, bring takeout, sit quietly, and let me talk when I needed to. She didn't offer cliches or easy advice, just presence. And that was enough. Emily started reaching out after a few weeks. Texts at first, then emails, long ones, saying she was sorry. Saying she didn't know what she was thinking. That what she had with Caleb wasn't what she imagined. That she missed me. That she still loved me. I didn't respond. I read every word, every excuse, every plea for forgiveness, but I didn't reply. Because love without loyalty is manipulation, and I wasn't about to negotiate with the same person who shattered me. Therapy came next. Maya gently suggested it, and I reluctantly agreed. At first, I didn't say much. Just sat there, arms crossed, telling the therapist I was fine. But eventually, it cracked open. I talked about the betrayal, the shame, the feeling of being replaced without warning. I talked about how I questioned every memory, every compliment, every moment of affection, wondering if any of it was real, or if it was just convenience. I talked about how I blamed myself more than her, wondering what I lacked, what I missed, what I failed to give. The truth was, I had given everything, and it still wasn't enough. And that realization, though painful, was freeing, because it meant I wasn't broken. I wasn't unworthy. I just loved someone who didn't know how to value what she had. Months passed. Slowly, I started to feel human again. I went back to the gym, picked up an old hobby, reconnected with friends I'd lost touch with. I wasn't the same, but I wasn't numb anymore either. I was learning to exist outside the label of husband, outside the shadow of betrayal. One afternoon, I ran into Caleb, random cafe. He was alone, looked older somehow, worn down. We locked eyes for a moment. He gave me a nod. I didn't return it. I just walked past. I didn't need an apology from him. He wasn't the one who owed it. And even if he did, it wouldn't have mattered. Some damage can't be undone, no matter who says sorry. Eventually, I heard from a friend that Emily and Caleb didn't last. Just a few months. She moved out again. Tried to reach out to me one more time. I blocked her, not out of anger. Out of self-respect. I didn't need to reopen a door that should have never been built. Some endings are permanent. Some betrayals don't get redemption arcs. They just end. And you learn from them. I started dating again. Slowly, cautiously. I wasn't looking for someone to fix me. I wasn't desperate to fill the void. I was looking for peace, for honesty, for the kind of connection that didn't rely on secrecy or thrill. And in time I found it. Not in a grand love story, but in quiet compatibility, in shared values, in mutual respect. The kind of love that doesn't need drama to feel real. Asterisk, I don't think about Emily much anymore. When I do, it's not with rage or sadness. It's just a name from another life. A chapter that taught me everything I didn't know I needed to learn. About myself, about trust, about what I will and won't tolerate again. Asterisk, the betrayal was big. It cracked me open in ways I never expected, but healing was bigger. And I walked away stronger. Not because I wanted to be, but because I had to be. And now I carry peace where pain once lived. That, to me, is the real victory. I didn't recognize myself for a long time after everything ended. There was a version of me that used to believe love was enough, that if you gave someone everything, they wouldn't look elsewhere. But when someone you trust most lies to your face and lives a double life right next to you, it forces you to rebuild from nothing. And rebuilding doesn't start with strength. It starts with surviving, waking up, breathing through the weight in your chest, pretending to be okay when you're not. I became an expert at small talk and fake smiles while everything inside me was still unraveling. Asterisk. The apartment felt colder than it was. Not physically, but in energy. The silence no longer comforted me, it echoed. Every wall felt like a mirror, reflecting back pieces of a man trying to remember who he was before her. I kept replaying moments, trying to trace the first lie. The first sign. The first shift in her tone, her gaze, her affection. I wanted to pinpoint the moment things broke so I could understand it, maybe even blame myself less. But there was no clear start. Just a slow erosion. Like water wearing down stone. Asterisk, some nights, I couldn't sleep. I'd lie awake wondering if she ever meant it. The vows. The promises. The way she looked at me when we said I do. Did she lie then, or did something change along the way? Maybe she convinced herself she was in love with me, and when that illusion cracked, she ran back to someone who reminded her of a version of herself she missed. Whatever it was, it had nothing to do with me. That was the hardest truth to accept. That sometimes, someone can betray you not because you failed, but because they were never whole to begin with. Asterisk, I didn't rush healing. I gave myself space. Allowed the grief to run its course. And I didn't pretend to forgive her. I didn't say she was a good person who made a bad choice. She knew exactly what she was doing. She crossed the line and kept walking. Loyalty isn't an accident. Neither is deception. What she did wasn't a moment of weakness. It was a series of calculated decisions, layered with lies she rehearsed and delivered flawlessly. Asterisk, I started to write again. Not about her, but about myself. I wrote things I never said aloud about feeling small in my own home, about questioning my worth after being left behind, about rebuilding trust in myself. I didn't need revenge. I needed release. Writing helped. So did silence. Not the kind that comes from someone avoiding you, but the kind you choose for yourself. When you're done begging for answers that won't come. Asterisk, people eventually stopped asking. The curiosity faded. Life moved on, and so did I, but in my own time. Not out of pressure, not out of desperation. I started enjoying solitude, not as a punishment, but as a reset. I became more careful with my time, more intentional with my conversations. I learned to listen to energy, not just words. I learned that peace is more valuable than passion, that burns too fast and leaves you in ashes. Asterisk, she reached out one last time. A long message saying she understood now what she'd lost, that no one else had loved her the way I did, that Caleb was temporary, that he never saw her the way I did. I didn't reply, because I'm not her lesson. I'm not her second chance. I'm not a home you return to after burning every room. Some bridges aren't meant to be crossed again, and this one, it wasn't just burned. It was buried. Asterisk, I don't tell this story for pity. I don't tell it to make her the villain. I tell it because betrayal leaves marks, but it also reveals. Things you ignore when you're in love. It shows you who was really in the relationship and who was just occupying space. I gave her loyalty, commitment, truth. She gave me performance. And now I'm free from pretending any of it was mutual. I've grown in ways I never thought I would. I've learned to live with an open heart but guarded standards. To let people in without losing myself. To trust again, but only after someone earns it. Not with words, but with consistency. I found strength in solitude, wisdom in heartbreak, and clarity in chaos. That chapter is closed. She's a memory I no longer revisit. Caleb is a name that holds no power. And I am not a broken man trying to fix what's shattered. I'm someone who walked through fire and came out without needing to burn anyone else in return. That's how you know you've healed, not when you forget, but when remembering doesn't hurt anymore.